The Punisher got some incredible buffs to his damage, making him a solid contender in ranked this season. My name is Paz, an Eternity player on the competitive ladder, and I'm going to tell you all of the things you need to know in order to pop off and carry against those pesky flyers as the Punisher. Starting things off, understand that the Punisher is a solid DPS that focuses on consistent output as compared to finding quick picks early on in the fight. Also note that before, with his infinite ammo team-up, he was strictly utilized for defeating tanks without shields like Venom, Hulk, Thor, Penny, you get the gist. Now, while he is still pretty strong into these characters, he can pressure flyers pretty well when they aren't playing in cover. That is the name of the game on Punisher, not to find eliminations early, but pressure different key targets throughout the fight, so that later down the road, when the enemy is forced to engage on you, it is so much easier to take them out. The Punisher takes patience and high precision aim to work. With this in mind, let's start discussing his kit. Punisher's gun has two different firing modes, a fast firing assault rifle and a powerful shotgun. We are going to focus on his rifle mode first though, the Adjudication. While in the rifle mode, Punisher fires 10 rounds per second, each dealing 19 damage to the body with a total mag size of 40. This means that he deals about 200 to 400 damage per second when adding the 5% seasonal bonus to his damage that he gets, as well as his headshot multiplier. So yes, if you were hitting all headshots, you are doing insane damage with these changes, but that is if you aren't running into fall off. Damage fall off begins at 20 meters away, decreasing to 70% of normal damage at 40 meters away and beyond. So instead of dealing 200 to 400 damage per second, you are dealing 140 to 280 damage per second. That is still considerable damage from extremely far away though. When firing, after about 2 seconds, the bullets will spread around the Punisher's crosshair like so. It is a very minor amount to the point that I don't really even think about it, to be honest, but you can get rid of the spread by simply not firing a bullet around the 20 ammo mark and then resume firing. What's even better is if you shoot in bursts of like 8, for example. Something that is important to note about the gun is that while it can melt targets pretty quickly and easily, you have to be careful that you aren't just shooting tanks for no reason. This is because it will be very easy for the enemy supports to get their ultimate if you cannot finish off the targets you are trying to deal damage to. So if you are trying to build your ultimate, it is still fine since your ult can cancel some support ultimates with good aim anyways. However, if you already have it and the enemy supports do not have theirs, possibly using the zipline to take an off angle and pressuring the backline instead is far more valuable compared to just beaming a tank and doing really no damage at all. The Punisher has solid consistent damage output, but with it comes the possibility that you are helping the enemy more than you are helping your own team. Pressure tanks if they are stepping too far forward, always make flyers question if they are too far out in the open, and take out supports if they are getting a little bit too comfortable with their positioning. If you are newer to shooter games and want some tips to hit more shots on the Punisher to get better at outputting stats with him in general, the type of aim you'll want to get better at is tracking. I am by no means an aim coach, but I'll put some resources into the description to help you all get better at that. And in terms of movement, if the enemy team is just straight up not looking at you, there's no reason for you to strafe back and forth. It's going to be harder to track as a result. Just make sure that you're paying extra attention to those characters so that you don't get taken out right away. Let's now move into talking about his shotgun firing mode, Deliverance. In this mode, the Punisher shoots out a burst of 14 bullets at a time that deal 10 damage per projectile. This means a full burst to the head deals 280 damage, enough to one-shot squishy targets. This will rarely happen though unless you are extremely close to the enemy due to the spread that starts very quickly and diminishes your damage. On top of this, the bullets also run into significant fall off at 15 meters away. So with this information, you really shouldn't look to use your shotgun unless you are 10 or less meters out. And the further away you are, the more you should look to shoot the torso of your targets instead of their heads, since the spread gets worse the further you are away. From a pure damage output standpoint, the shotgun deals significantly less damage per second at 186 per second if shooting only heads, where the rifle is outputting 400 per second if shooting only heads. This does not mean that you should never be looking to pull out your shotgun though, it simply informs you of the strengths and weaknesses of both firing modes. The assault rifle is great for dealing consistent damage and pressuring enemies in the early stages of the fight, as well as for just charging your ultimate in general. The shotgun is the exact opposite. It is there to finish targets that are low or possibly one-shot squishies with incredible burst damage before they receive healing from another target later in the fight, as that is when you are most likely to be able to close the distance safely anyways. The shotgun also works even better when in conjunction with his other abilities that give him quick mobility to close the distance on key targets even faster. Outside of the individual stats of each of his firing modes, note that switching between between the firing modes is not instant. Because of this, before just running into the enemies with your shotgun, make sure you switch before you peek. No need to make yourself vulnerable for no reason. Also, switching between your guns does not reload them either. Make sure that once a fight is finished, you reload both weapons so you're prepared for the next fight. The assault rifle reloads all of the bullets at once, while the shotgun loads rounds individually, and if you wait long enough, after about 8 seconds, the other gun that you're not using will get reloaded, but this won't really happen while you're in the middle of a fight. Enough talking about the primary weapon of the Punisher, let's talk about his culling turret. Upon pressing E by default, if Punisher has boots on the ground, he will transition into a sitting turret that blocks 600 damage in front of him before being destroyed. The turret can also be destroyed by pressing the cooldown again, or if the ground beneath it gets destroyed. The turret also prevents the Punisher from being stunned or gobbled up by Jeff. It will leave the Punisher vulnerable from getting shot from behind though. Each bullet does 12 damage directly and another 12 explosive damage in a 3-meter radius, firing about 13 rounds per second. This adds up to a total of 328 damage per second with the seasonal bonus. So the damage output is less than if you're hitting all headshots with the assault rifle, but easier to deal consistent damage to groups with the explosive properties of each shot. The other thing to note about the turret is that the bullets you are firing are not hit scan like the assault rifle. They are slow moving projectiles, meaning you'll have to lead your shots at a long range. On top of this, the bullets fire at the start with a pretty noticeable spread that gets more precise the longer you shoot, after 20 shots to be exact. This gives the enemies time to react at longer range before you start really pumping in some crazy AoE damage. You have 200 shots before you are forced to leave the turret too. Rarely do I ever run out of ammo though, and if the infinite ammo team up ever comes back, please don't use it on the turret. How many shots you have remaining is shown on the bottom left hand side of your screen, as well as on the screen under your reticle to the bottom right. The turret is great for taking an angle early on in the fight where your tanks are not shielding, that might give you just enough space to pressure the enemy team when they are clumped together. Because the turret does area of effect damage, it is meant to pressure multiple targets at once as compared to just one at a time. And while the damage is considerable, it is not the max you can possibly do to one target at a time. A lot of people get that wrong. While you might be inclined to just walk into the backline or go on a crazy flank angle with a turret, it's very unsafe to do that. This is because the animation to get into turret is loud and slow. When you get taken out of the turret by your enemy, you have a second or two where you can't fire back and you're way out of position. If you want to go for your play, make sure you have a zipline already set up for you to get out that you can easily escape in the event that things go south. Outside of the damaging properties, the turret actually serves as a great shield against Magneto ultimates, especially against new Magneto players. Your friendly support can actually sit behind your turret while you look at the sky to counter the ultimate. Of course, the mag could just throw his meteor to the left or to your right, but unless it is supercharged, it probably won't be able to find a pick on you and your friends. Moving on, let's talk about the Punisher's zipline, the Vantage connection. Upon pressing shift by default, the Punisher connects a zipline to any surface from 5 to 35 meters away that is at an angle of 20 degrees to 160 degrees. What this means in slightly less nerd emoji terms is that it can't go straight up or straight down. It can still go from where you are standing to level ground. You just have to aim it so that it connects to the ground really far away. It's kind of hard to pull off, but it's also just not really worth it. It's just a cool thing to know. While on the zipline, the Punisher moves at a crazy fast 25 meters per second. And he can conserve his movement by jumping off of the zipline before he disconnects, or by simply just waiting until he gets launched off if the side he is zipping towards is not attached to a wall that will block his movement forward. Each zipline he places will not go away until he places more than 3, since he can only have 3 active at a time. What this means is that he can have pre-placed ziplines to zip back into the fight if he gets eliminated for a quick way back into the fight. Full transparency, I am by no means a Punisher god, and I don't know all of the insane places to put your zip lines, but I am sure there are resources out there, or you can find them out yourself by just going into a custom game. I know of one in this map, Shin Shibuya, from my time playing Punisher in Season 0, but I know there are more on other maps as well. Understanding where to place the zipline in each map is what takes a Punisher player to the next level. It is what separates the good from the great. What makes a player even better than great is when they combo their zipline movement with the Scourge grenade, but before we talk about how to use it in this way, let's talk about how the ability works first. Upon pressing right click by default, the Punisher launches out a smoke grenade wherever he is aiming that deals 45 damage and sends him 9 meters backward. You can jump at the end to extend your momentum. When the smoke grenade makes contact with a player or the environment, smoke bursts out and obstructs vision for all players for a brief moment in a 5-meter spherical radius. When combined with Punisher's passive that allows him to see targets for 3 seconds behind walls that he saw previously, this can set up for some pretty easy eliminations. The main time you'll want to use the smoke grenade is when you are getting dove and need a quick way to create create distance and pressure an enemy out. Times where this will be applicable includes dueling characters like Black Panther, Psylocke, and really any other dive-centric characters. It is also fine to use this ability against characters like Hela or Hawkeye to take cover after they pressure you out. Because it sends you backwards pretty quick, it is just all around a great escape tool. If the enemies don't have anything to follow up with, then it is fine to use it to obstruct vision or for the extra damage. Think of it as a save yourself ability first and an aggressive one later, since really good players are just going to target you once it's forced out. As for the movement capabilities of this ability, we've already talked about how it sends you backwards quite a bit, but we can use this in tandem with the zipline to make some really cool flank plays. For example, Gale loves to use this on Central Park to roll out and flank quickly on first point by sending himself flying and then using the smoke to halt his movement and jump to the platform on the left. Notice how the Punisher loses all of his forward velocity when the smoke bomb is used this way. You can also simply use it to ascend to different high grounds like this one on the Hall of the Jalia without needing to use a zipline. Just make sure that you put your back to the high ground as you smoke bomb up, because it's going to send you backwards a little bit when looking at the ground. Like I said with the zipline, there are tons of different areas you can explore and try to get to with the zipline and smoke bomb combo, and while I know of a few spots, I don't have thousands of hours on the Punisher to know them all. So if there are any spots you guys do like, feel free to join the Discord and show me and the community. I'm genuinely curious because it actually is pretty fun. I know we touched on it briefly before, but let's cover the Punisher's passive, Warrior's Gaze, since there are some misconceptions with the ability. When a target that is in the Punisher's line of sight goes behind cover, so long as they are within a 30-meter spherical radius of him, he will retain vision of them for 3 seconds. Misconceptions that need to be squashed are that friendlies also see this, and also that seeing a target through a wall means they are low on health. A lot of people think that this passive is the same as Sombra's from Overwatch that sees low targets through walls, but no, the Punisher only sees targets that he saw previously through walls. It is finally time to talk about the Punisher's ultimate though, Final Judgment. Upon using the ultimate, the Punisher will unleash 2 Gatling guns and a missile launcher on his shoulders for 10 seconds. The Gatling guns deal 8 damage per round, firing 33 rounds per second. These can deal critical damage, totaling 264 to 528 damage per second, enough to eliminate a Luna Snow through her ultimate if you can melt her head. It is important that you practice your tracking to the point that you are able to do this consistently, as it is a way to create massive value on the Punisher. Being able to do this will win you games. The shoulder-mounted missiles lock onto targets and they will work in a pretty complicated manner. For starters, understand that each missile deals 50 damage each. The way that they fire is by locking onto a target that is as far as 40 meters or less around you. They fire automatically and you cannot control them. Volleys of missiles are shot every 3 seconds with 8 missiles per volley. However, a target can only be targeted by 3 missiles per volley. When a volley is reset, they can take more missiles, but they usually run away at this point. This information doesn't really change how you want to use the ultimate as the Punisher. However, it is nice to know when you are going against him, so you know that you are not safe if you are low, even if he is not looking directly at you. Don't worry, the rocket volleys cannot break things like Loki lamps if you're on that character. The Punisher has to shoot them down himself. While in the ultimate, the Punisher moves 10% slower in general and 30% slower while shooting. There is an animation before you are allowed to start shooting too, so try to use the ultimate from behind a wall so you don't get blown up right away when you go for a play. Outside of just aiming better, the skill that takes a Punisher player to the next level is understanding when they can and cannot use their ultimate. A very common counter to the Punisher is to use a Magneto ultimate to just instantly delete him the moment he goes for his ult. There are a couple of ways around this though. One way is to just play next to your shield tank when you go for your ultimate, so the Strange can block it, or your Magneto can just bubble you and you can delete the enemy Magneto afterwards. The same is also true for Invisible Woman if you trust her. You just have to look at the meteor as it comes in. Another way is to just shoot it out of the air before it eliminates you. This is far less common now that mag players are well practiced and know how to throw the meteor quickly, but if your team helps you shoot it down alongside you, you might just catch them off guard. At the end of the day, you only need to deal 3,400 damage to charge this ultimate, and you can do that insanely quickly if you are melting tanks throughout each and every fight. Get your ultimate and try to find picks early in the fight or eliminate squishies through enemy support ultimates. Alright, now that we have discussed all of the Punisher's abilities, let's start discussing what counters him. Far and away, the only tank that really counters the Punisher is Magneto. His shield is energy based and not damage based, which completely nullifies your strength of shield breaking with raw output, making it very hard to do anything in the front line. His ultimate also completely negates yours, which is incredibly tilting. So much so that one of my original duos that was a Punisher one trick would try to get mag banned every single game, and to be honest, it was worth it. All the other tanks Punisher plays pretty well into though. As for DPS, Punisher is going to struggle against agile flank flankers like Psylocke that can outmaneuver him even though he has the smoke bomb to create distance. Hela is also pretty strong into the Punisher in duels since she can just 2-tap him before he gets set up and ready to gun her down. Punisher can win this if he simply pressures her frontline harder, but if the Hela is smart in taking off angles, she just won't let this happen. For supports, I don't think there are any crazy bad matchups for Punisher besides Rocket just healing everyone anywhere that makes taking people down a bit harder, but that goes for really every support. And you have a really easy time destroying his ultimate, so take this one as you will. As far as characters Punisher likes to play with, I personally love playing with characters like Emma, Groot, and Strange. All of these tanks make the frontline war much easier and let you deal damage without having to worry about getting shot yourself. Also, turning in front of a Strange portal can be nice to set yourself up on a flank safely if he chooses to enable you this way. Notice that Magneto is not in this list because he also counters you, and if you ban him, you're obviously not going to be able to play with him, but if he is on the board, he's honestly not that bad to pair with a Punisher either. Black Widow has a team up with the Punisher that gives her a crazy team up that allows her to one-shot any target with 325 HP by hitting a headshot followed up with a team-up shot combo. She is absolutely insane with this and destroys flyers, making this duo worth learning if you have a friend that has some pretty nutty aim. Other DPS that pair well with Punisher could be Moon Knight to really go for consistent damage, or really any other character that can follow up with Punisher's damage. I personally don't mind a Bucky if he is finding really good hooks. The combination of his blaster and your Punisher shotgun will absolutely blow up anyone, even tanks. For supports, Rocket used to have the infinite ammo team up that was OP, but that was taken away, so personally, I love playing with Luna Snow. When support ults are being traded on both sides, she can switch to damage boost quick while you are in your ultimate, and you can just absolutely nuke the enemy team. It is incredible, seriously try it out. Invisible Woman also is not that bad either since she can shield your turret and also shield you from Magneto ultimates while you are ulting, so that's another point that's pretty nice to know. Before we move on to the VOD portion of the guide, when should you play the Punisher? Are there any strong characters that he shuts down? The best time to run the Punisher in this season, season 2.5, is whenever the enemies are running flyers like Storm, Iron Man, and Hawkeye as well as Hela are banned. I know this sounds pretty niche and situational, but it happens so often right now in ranked that you'll be playing the Punisher more often than you realize. He is also really good at pressuring tanks that are getting a little too comfortable, like Groot for example. Even though he lost his team up with Rocket, he is still a strong damage outputting machine. To be honest, while it isn't a matchup, if you are struggling on DPS in a match, but you do have some pretty solid aim, the Punisher is a fine, all-around nice pick right now too, that is simple to pick up and play as well. So it's nice to at least know him a little bit, so you have a stat character to output if you need. Now that we understand the Punisher and his kit, as well as where he is applicable, let's take a look at a couple of VODs to get an even better understanding of his kit. All right, guys, so for today's 3 VODs, we're going to be looking at Bedtime Story, otherwise known as BTS by those who are close to him, and he is the rank 1 player currently on the ladder playing for Solaris. And I just wanted to show you guys all of the things that he's doing on Punisher that makes him just that much more consistent. This is a very high-level lobby, one of his most recent games, and right when the enemies use their Luna Snow ult, he's going to pull out his as well and try to start pressuring out that Luna Snow. They're all playing very smart on the other team. They're knowledgeable about this matchup, but then the moment he sees someone out of position outside of that Luna Snow ultimate, he's just immediately going to turn for them and kill that Rocket. Sure, he dies, but he's gotten enough picks to push his team forward to win this fight. So just knowing that when you have your ultimate and both Luna Snows are getting traded back and forth, using your Punisher ultimate is honestly fine because you're going to be able to do enough damage to at least find a pick or a straggler if you need to. And the other thing here too that I wanted to highlight at the very end of this VOD is watch how he uses the zipline to get back every single fight. Right here, it's placed on the top of that little wall right there. I'll go back a little bit more for you guys and possibly slow it down so you guys can get the placement there. It's always nice to know this. See how it's at the very tippy top of the wall as he is leaving spawn. What he's going to do every single time then is get on this zip line and then jump about halfway through. Look how far this sends him. Doesn't even hit the top of that wall. Perfect. He's almost immediately back in the fight the moment he just won it. The next VOD of Bedtime Story we're going to be watching is actually the fight that happens immediately after. And I want to show you guys, watch how he uses his turret. He's not actually going to use the turret in direct line of sight of the enemies. Instead, he's going to actually be above the choke where they can't really see him. So he can look for AoE damage to charge his ultimate instead. The next thing I wanted to talk about is watch how he handles the Penny. He's not really scared of her whatsoever, but he's also not just going to completely hard int and try to swing when he's into mines. He's going to take his time. He's just going to pressure her out, break those nests so he doesn't have to deal with them, and then just do pepper damage for his Black Panther to come in and kill him, or kill the Luna Snow thereafter pretty easily. This is something I think a lot of lower level Punishers really need to get better at, is that you're not really meant to just go in and take these 1v1s super aggressively until the enemies are low, until you have forced people out enough. And if you play like this, if you're really playing to conserve your health, conserve your uptime, while still getting a lot of damage done, you're actually going to be able to do a lot more in these fights and carry like BTS just did in this VOD. So let's move on to one last more option. Wow, wait, hold up. This is a crazy spot. I actually didn't even realize this. I didn't get this far in the VOD. That is a crazy spot to learn too. That's a crazy cool zip line we're going to use in the Bronze to GM, getting up on this little high ground. Maybe setting up a turret here as well. I mean, it doesn't have to happen all the time, but those are just options you have in the middle of fights. I mean, look at what you can learn from watching these really good players. All right, let's watch one more from BTS though. And for the last VOD that we review of BTS, I wanted to show you guys actually a way that you can use turrets to kind of use it in a weird way. As you can see, he died pretty early in the last fight, and he's just gonna poke so he can maybe get some ult, maybe break it deployable, but doesn't do too much. But realize how immediately the enemy team tries to push up here while he's kind of in spawn. So he uses the turret to extend his life in spawn here and almost actually forces out the Bucky to get a little bit too aggressive and die here. I think this is something that if people do in like, I don't know, like GM, Celestial, and below, you honestly probably get away with getting a pick on the Bucky here if he does overextend like this. Obviously, Donatello does a good job of not going too far or too fast and living there, but this is a cheeky thing that you can do with your turret that's super unconventional, by the way, and that's really how BTS is using his turret to actually get a lot more value on the character and possibly catch people out. So again, if you want to watch BTS, he currently is rank 1 at the moment of me recording this, and I'm sure he's going to be up there for quite some time after this. So I'll also try to see if I can find his links and put them in the description. And that closes out today's guide for the Punisher and Marvel Rivals. If you have any questions, make sure to send them in the comments down below, as well as asking me live right now here on YouTube or at twitch.tv/PazSwagger. I try to stream every day I upload, so be sure to check me out to learn more about everything I talked about today. Thank you guys all so much for watching, but until next time, I've got to peace out and Paz out. I'll see you in the next one.